Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about Astrology Memories Part 2. Some of you may remember some time ago I had done, it was at least a few years ago, I believe, a video on my astrological memories. And this one will be Part 2. And in this one, I may reiterate some of the astrological memories I may have talked about in that first video, and then include some others in it. So anyway, well, first thing up is, well, the first thing I want to talk about is, well, when I first started becoming very interested and enamored with astrology, there were some books that I got interested in, of course, and one was that Secret to a Stargazer's Notebook. I believe the author was Debbie Kempton Smith, and she had a very whimsical quality to that book. I mean, that is a timeless classic. It was almost like written in a colloquial manner, almost like when you would like have a conversation with somebody, like they would have like in the Moon and Gemini description, it said something like, these people are little radios which jabber, jabber, jabber all day long. And then they had for Cancer rising, there was something in the description, if you're the fickle type, this sweetheart is for you. So something, I mean, it was just really, it made it so distinctive and memorable because of that style that it was written in. And some other early books that I read when I first got into astrology was The Only Way to Learn Astrology series, and that was the volumes 1 through 3, and I mean that really broke the subject down really good, and you can assimilate so much information in those books. And as far as the chart calculation goes, which you really don't have to worry much about now because of the internet and all those programs on the internet that could facilitate the process. But at that time, it was a lot of things that had to be, I mean, you pretty much had to do it either by hand, or if you had, I mean, with certain computers, I mean, even though you don't have like you didn't have the computers with the internet then, I believe you could get astrological software and it would be like on a floppy disk or something. But anyway, I mean, I had done it, you know, if I was calculating charts, it was done by hand at that time because I didn't have that astrological software. Anyway, another thing too, I thought was really going back to astrological memories in the early period too. In the 1980s, I can remember like in the mid to late 80s, I had a prominent family member that would be watching like you know, on celebrities on TV, and she would be guessing like these celebrities sun signs and ascendants and even some of their moon signs almost instantaneously. She was like very quick with it. I mean, she had a Scorpio sun and a Cancer ascendant. The Cancer ascendant was at 29 degrees, which I see is like the full culmination of the sun. So she had a lot of intuitive ability. Also Mercury in Sagittarius, which I think could be very prophetic. And there's really not, when Mercury in Sagittarius, people often will look at things without going through an overabundance of analysis, and they come to their conclusions quickly in many cases. Now, another thing too, and going back to that, I want to go, you know, as far as early astrological memories go. I mean, as far as that, what I call the primitive way of calculating the chart, the pre-internet days, some of you may remember, some may not. I mean, when I would like draw up a chart, actually would be using a compass, a protractor. I would have a table of houses book. I would also have an ephemeris at that time, and I even had a book that had like time zone changes in it, you know, like for daylight savings time if it was in effect. So, and I mean, it was a little bit tedious and time consuming, but I'll tell you one thing, it makes me appreciate this time much more than that period. I can remember when I was in school too, like in high school, they had this computer which would like calculate the sidereal time for a given date, location, and time, which could help facilitate things a little bit for me in terms of the calculation of a chart. But I would still have to go to the table of houses book with that calculated sidereal time. But at least I could ascertain the sidereal time without having to do the math for it in some instances. But the majority of the charts I would look up would be done of using the mathematical formula process. So, and anyway, well, I have some memories too. I want to talk about that were in a connection with some people that I think really resonated with their sons and or some astrological energies, I should say, and they really, I mean, really, some of these experiences really. Really showed me, I mean, showed their astrological energies really coming out strong in these experiences. Now, I had a friend one time that one time he prank called me, and this was like around 1985 maybe, and he didn't say anything on the phone, okay? And what happened was I actually I blew the whistle on him, so to speak. I actually took a whistle, I blew it in the phone, and he hung up abruptly, naturally. So what happened was he called back right away and he cursed at me and swore at me, and then he hung up quick. He didn't give me an opportunity to respond. But what it was I thought was interesting is that this person that called and just decided not to say anything, when I looked at his chart a little more deeply later on, he has his Mercury Mercury retrograde conjunct Saturn. So no wonder he was so silent when he was on the phone. I really think that might have had maybe that played a role in it as well. And the zodiac sign Cancer, of course, could be very shy anyway. And I think that that unpredictability as Aquarius rising came out when he called me back quickly and he cursed at me and hung up real fast before I could respond. So, and then I had another prankster buddy, you could say phone prankster buddy. And one time this person had a Sagittarius moon and a Pisces ascendant. And what he did one time is he called me up. He was pretending to be somebody from a pizza delivery place, and he said, "I want a large pepperoni pizza." And he said it in kind of like an old craggy disguised voice. It was such a blatantly obvious disguised voice. It was, I mean, it was very humorous looking back at this. He called me, I think, like a couple times, and he asked for the large pepperoni pizza. I said, "This is not a pizza place." Hung up on him 2 times. He was very persistent. He called back a third time, and I finally took the order. And when I said, "Okay, I'll have it ready for you in like 15 minutes, whatever," and he said, "Well," and he said with sausage. He asked me with sausage, make sure to put sausage on it. So I did. So I said, okay, I bludge. I said, okay, but I think when I look back at this person, and I think a lot of that Sagittarius moon Pisces ascendant energy came out because, I mean, Sagittarius moon could have that emotional need to be that jokester, to in some cases pulling pranks on someone, to play some kind of practical joke on a person, something that's connected with humor. And then I think the Pisces rising flavored that because he was pretending to be someone else. It was a little flavored with deception. So I thought that was very interesting, and I think those energies were coming out very strongly from that person in that experience, those astrological energies. Now, another thing too I want to get at as far as memories go, I had a Gemini rising friend one time. Actually, it's kind of ironic. He was born on the same day to me, same year. He was born about an hour after me and has a Gemini ascendant. And I can remember an experience where he had there was a couple kids outside. It was like in the schoolyard area near where the bus was going to pick us up, leaving school to go home. And they were actually trying to pin him down like wrestling, and they were trying to push him down to the ground. And he did some kind of weird, he did like a quick, abrupt push-up maneuver, and he knocked the two people off of him. And I think that is almost symbolic and emblematic of Gemini energy because, as many of you know, Gemini is a sign that in a figurative standpoint doesn't really want to be pinned down. But in that moment, it was like he literally would not get pinned down. I think Geminis are such, whether it's Gemini Sun, Moon, or Ascendant. In his case, Gemini Moon and Ascendant he would not allow himself to be pinned down in the literal standpoint, but it is so symbolic of that Gemini energy in the figurative standpoint. But I think it does work with them in the literal and figurative manner, because Geminis, I mean, as quick-witted as they can be, they'll find a way in a situation if somebody's trying to get them down. They'll often find a way to get out of that situation. So Anyway, and then I had another Gemini rising friend, another interesting experience where he showed, I thought he exemplified Gemini energy very strongly. I could remember a time when I was sitting down with him, and we were under my grandma's awning by the driveway. And the car, my grandma's car was parked on an incline. It was kind of an odd driveway. The driveway was an incline, and the car just started descending, going on a decline. It just started going down, and I was oblivious. I didn't even know what was happening. And I guess he saw something out of the corner of his eye, my Gemini rising friend, and he just bolted. I mean, by the time I looked, I kind of glanced at him. He was about, it seemed like at least 20 feet. He had been running toward the car, and he was doing what he can do to try to stop it from rolling and open the car door and put his foot on the brake. And but I think it stopped anyway, basically on its own around that time. But the thing was, I mean, Gemini people will often, they will, you're basically pondering something. You're stuck on, you're where, I guess you could say, at stage A, so to speak, and they've already ascended to stage B or C because they are so much far ahead of people in on a mental and even physical level at times. So anyway, and I think he really showed he embodied that strong Gemini energy in that moment. Now, going back to when I started continuing now with more astrological memories pertaining to me. There was when I started my YouTube channel, that was on September 26, 2012. And some of you may wonder, well, was there any inspiration for me to do that? When I started it on that time, there were two things. There was actually Alyssa Sharp, who of course is a renowned YouTube astrologer. And excuse me, there was a song by Ellie Goulding called Anything Can Happen. And it was really, believe it or not, those were the two things that inspired me. That anything could happen seems like it's about really curtailing fear and discarding fear and not allowing it to prohibit you from accomplishing what you want to set out to do. That you have to take action in order to have a chance of something to happen. And I felt like when what really made me want to do that and do these astrology videos was be really as well is that I would always be pondering what if I didn't do it. I would say, Eddie, what if you don't do this? What if something what if you look 10, 15 years down the road and you say, well, Eddie, why didn't you do this? You never know what could have happened. And I didn't want to be pondering what if, and that had definitely played a role in me starting the astrology videos. Now, another thing too, going back to some astrological memories part 2, is that back in the day when I actually had my comments enabled on my YouTube videos, on YouTube astrology videos, I would get some funny remarks at times, and then somebody left an insolent remark on one of my videos. I thought it was, looking back, it might have been kind of funny. He said too many big and then expletive words. And my response to that comment is I said, next time I'll speak using a 3rd grade vocabulary so you can understand what I'm saying. So looking back, I thought that was hilarious. Now, as far as now in a recent memory, what is as far as memories, astrological memories part 2 goes, well, really, this is kind of general. I've seen at least, well, one anyway in recent time where somebody had some post about Chiron and being basically very insignificant, the asteroid Chiron, and that it's not significant, and maybe whether just in general or in predictive astrology or what have you. But the thing about it is, I saw that and I look at that and I say there's no way that's true, because Chiron actually is very significant, at least in my opinion. You're going to have varied viewpoints on that. But you look at recently, many of you may have seen Heather Locklear had contemplated suicide. And the thing about it is, I'm sure likely with a gun by shooting herself. And if that being the case, transit Chiron at the time was making a very close conjunction to her natal Aries ascendant. And Chiron and you know, the Chiron can actually be about physical wounds as opposed to figurative ones. And of course, the ascendant is the physical body. And it was also opposing her sun in Libra, which of course the sun can be connected with life. And also Aries can be associated with gunfire. So this is really something where, and also Aries, of course, the head and the face. So she may have been contemplating shooting herself in the head or face somewhere. So I really strongly believe. And the thing about it is, there's also other things that I've seen with Chiron that really shows that its significance, and that the fact that it can have some, it does have relevance astrologically speaking. People can be impacted and affected strongly by it. At least I believe that. But anyway, that really is pretty much it as far as astrological memories part 2 go. So anyway, I'm going to conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Astrology Memories Part 2. And stay tuned next time, where I am going to be talking about giving my take on the July 27th, 2018 full moon lunar eclipse in Aquarius. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.